Okay, so now we're going to go over the guided reading questions for Act 2. So the first question is talking about the prologue in lines 1 through 14. What does line 5 identify as the difference between the situation with Rosaline and the one with Juliet? Well, that's Juliet actually loves him in return, unlike Rosaline, who was just like, I don't even know who this fool is. And then what conflict will Romeo and Juliet encounter in the pursuit of their love? As enemies, they're not going to be able to see each other very easily. We've already known that Romeo has much more freedom because he's a male at this time. Juliet is kind of under lock and key, which was very typical for females in this time. They didn't have as much freedom as their male counterparts. And then what lines support the idea that love will find a way? It says, but passion lends them power, time means to meet, tempering extremities with extreme sweet. So they'll figure it out. Number 2 is scene 1, lines 1 through 2. Explain the metaphor Romeo uses to describe his relationship with Juliet, and what does this metaphor express about his feelings for her? He says that Juliet is his heart. That's the metaphor. She is his heart. He calls himself the earth and says that she is the center of the earth. He's saying that he feels incomplete without her. He can't bear to leave the essential part of himself, which is his heart. Number 3 is scene 1, lines 17 through 32. Explain the dramatic irony in this part of the scene. Well, this is Mercutio and Benvolio still very much believe that Romeo is in love with Rosaline and is mourning over her. Mercutio says, I conjure thee by Rosaline's bright eyes. Benvolio says that Romeo hath hid himself among the trees. Well, why might his friends be concerned over Romeo's actions here? Well, he seems to have deliberately put himself in harm's way by trespassing on Capulet's grounds. They don't realize that it's because he's going to seek after Juliet. They think that he's so lovesick that he's crazy and like borderline suicidal, but that's not the case right now anyways. Number 4 is scene 1, lines 33 through 41. How does Mercutio's dialogue in this scene add to your impression of his character? He's very high-spirited. He likes to make fun of Romeo's lovesickness. He pushes boundaries with his crude humor and his outrageous puns. He has all the puns, and most of them are inappropriate. So number 5, scene 2, lines 1 through 25. What provokes Romeo to speak aloud? And what provokes him is he thinks he sees Juliet in the window, and he can't hold back his emotions, all the emotions. And then to what does he compare Juliet in the speech? He's comparing her to the sun and her eyes like bright stars in the heavens. What does this soliloquy reveal about his thoughts? Well, it shows that he is completely enraptured and captivated by Juliet's beauty. He idolizes her, and he's uncertain about how to communicate with her, and he wants to touch her. Okay, number 6. What does Juliet say that shows the strength of her feelings for Romeo in lines 33 through 53? Well, she says that if he would swear to love her, she'll forsake her name. She'll get rid of her name. So that's interesting. Number 7 is asking, how does Romeo address Juliet and why? He calls her a dear saint because that's what he called her at the party. She cannot see him yet, so he's giving her a clue to his identity, like, this is what I called you at the party, hint, hint, dear saint. What is the impact of this reminder to the audience? Well, it would be that she warns Romeo that if her family finds him on the grounds, he could be killed. This reminds the audience of the conflict between the two families that puts their relationship in jeopardy. So it's not just like, oh, look at these cute teenagers like talking to each other at night. Yeah, it is cute, but he's also putting his life at risk by coming after her. Number 8 is scene 2, lines 75 through 79. Do you think that Romeo is serious in his declaration? Why or why not? Well, some possible answers. Romeo is intense in his passions, just as he was with Rosaline. So that could suggest that it could vanish just as quickly as his feelings for Rosaline did when he met Juliet. But his passionate words could also show that he is serious about his love for Juliet, especially since the love is not going unrequited like it did the first time. Number 9, why does Juliet tell Romeo that she feels embarrassed? She feels embarrassed because he heard her say that she loved him. She was talking to herself, going on and on about him, and he heard the entire thing. So that's why she's embarrassed. What does she mean in lines 102 to 104 when she says, I should have been more strange, I must confess, but thou overheardst, ere I was aware, my true love's passion? Well, as befitting a lady, she should not let him know her true feelings so soon. Had she not been overheard, maybe she would have played hard to get for a little bit, but that's completely been blown out of the water. How do you think that Juliet's candor, her being open with him, might affect the progress of their relationship? Well, because she's so open with her feelings, she accelerates the rate at which their courtship would progress, because she's not playing any of those emotional games. She's like, no, I'm actually head over heels, completely in love with you. Number 10, why doesn't Juliet want Romeo to swear his love to her by the moon? Well, she points out that the moon changes daily. It diminishes and then increases. She wants something that's more constant and more dependable than the moon. She's like, don't swear on the moon. Why does Juliet compare their love to lightning? Well, lightning is fast and it's violent and it's over with before anyone can say, oh my gosh, it just brightened the sky. And so she doesn't want their love to be the same. She worries because everything is so quickly, happening so quickly, and she doesn't want it to disappear as quickly as it has appeared. What does Romeo say that conveys a similar idea? He says, I am afeared, but this is all a dream. That's after she like steps inside for a second because the nurse is calling her, and he's like, this is at night and I'm scared. This is all a dream. Number 11, what does Juliet demand from Romeo? She wants him to arrange their marriage. Whew, that happened fast, right? And then what motivates this request on Juliet's part? Well, she's afraid their families will find out and stop them from seeing each other. So if they can like put a ring on it, solidify it, it's going to work out. But Romeo's total commitment is to a long-term union. He doesn't want their relationship to just burn brightly, but only for a short time. Okay. Number 12, why is Romeo going to see Friar Lawrence? He's going to arrange the marriage with Juliet. The haste shows that he's sincere. He doesn't even go home to go to bed. He goes straight to Friar Lawrence's cell because he's like, let's get this done. Number 13, what idea does the friar convey with the contradictory statements in his speech, lines 9 through 20? Well, he says, the earth that's nature's mother is her tomb. What is her burying grave? That is her womb. He's describing the duality of nature and human nature in both it can give life and take life. So what earlier statements in the play do Friar Lawrence's contradictions echo? Well, it's Romeo and Juliet's contradictory statements about the nature of love. Juliet, my wedding bed is like to be my grave, and then Romeo's whole thing about the paradoxical comparisons to love, like feather of lead, those things. So again, we see Shakespeare play a lot with contradictions throughout this play. And then 14, what warning does the friar give about the qualities of both people and the plants? Well, he says that the good can lead to evil if turned from its true purpose, and evil can sometimes lead to good. We both have the ability within us for life and death, and just like plants have the ability within them for life and death. How could this warning function as foreshadowing? Well, even through the love of Romeo and Juliet seems like a good thing, it could have really negative consequences. Okay. 15 is talking about a photograph, and it was saying what ideas about the relationship between the friar and Romeo can be inferred in the photograph. You see there their laughter and obvious ease shows that they're good friends. Romeo feels comfortable with him. You could almost see like a fatherly relationship, and that's not a pun on him being a priest, but like literal, actual like father-son relationship. And then number 16, scene 3, lines 31 through 40, explain the dramatic irony the friar expresses in lines 39 through 40. He fears that something's wrong with Romeo, but the audience knows that Romeo's there because he wants to arrange the marriage with Juliet. So again, dramatic irony is when the audience knows something that the characters don't. And so the father is like, what is going on? But we know he's there to arrange the marriage. 17, how does Romeo react to the name of Rosaline and why? He's completely forgotten about her because he's so absorbed in his new love. That's when he's like, with Rosaline, my ghostly father, no, I've forgotten that name and that name as well. So he's just like, no, Please, we're done. And then number 18, explain why the friar tells Romeo to speak more plainly. Why is this language particularly confusing for the father? To the friar, Romeo is talking in riddles by saying that he has been feasting with mine enemy. It's well known that the Montagues and the Capulets don't get along. So, and he talks about being wounded, who wounded him that's wounded by me. He has no idea that Romeo has fallen in love with Juliet. So he's still like, please speak plainly. I don't understand what you're saying. Number 20, which lines explain why the friar agrees to marry Romeo and Juliet and for other reasons for the friar's cooperation? Well, sorry, I feel like I'm lost. There we go. He says, in one respect, all thy assistant be for this alliance may so happy prove to turn your household's rancor to pure love. So he's fond of Romeo. He wants to help him. He fears what Romeo would do if he's not able to marry Juliet. And again, the underlying thing there is if perhaps when they get married, then the families will stop feuding with each other. So number 20 is talking about, 21. Infer how Benvolio and Mercutio feel. Why? How does this new event add complications to the plot? Well, they're concerned for Romeo. They're worried that if he goes to meet Tybalt, they will not fare well in a fight, because that's when he gets the letter and the challenge. And they know that Romeo is lovesick and Tybalt is an excellent fighter, so it just doesn't seem like a fair fight. A fight between Tybalt and Romeo could lead to the death of one of them or to others who may become involved, and they've already been warned by the prince that if there's another fight, it will be punishable upon death. 22, what is Mercutio saying in these lines through his comparison of Tybalt to his namesake, the cat? He's saying that Tybalt is as clever and as a skillful duelist who knows all the moves. Just like a cat always lands on the feet, Tybalt is really good at what he does. 23, describe Mercutio's attitude towards Rosaline's feelings based on his choice of words. He's making fun of Romeo's lovesickness, as always. Apart from making fun of Romeo, why is Mercutio so aware of Romeo's lovesick state? Well, he's fearful that it's going to distract him if he ends up fighting with Tybalt. Like, he's not going to have his head in the game because he's so heartbroken. And what's the dramatic irony of Mercutio's speech? He's not in love with Rosaline anymore, and we all know that. Except for Mercutio and Benvolio. They still don't. Okay, and then 24 is another photograph. Why does this photograph create an ominous mood? The figures are unseen. It's only their shadows that are visible, and the subdued light suggests that it's an ominous mood. 25, what do you notice about Romeo's responses in this exchange in lines 56 through 72 with Mercutio as compared to their conversation in Act 1? Romeo's quick in his replies. He makes no reference to his feelings. He just responds by actual jest, like telling actual jokes. In Act 1, he turned every reply back to his lovesickness. And here, he's not doing that. They're actually having like a good like buddy joke exchange. 26, lines 77 through 81 in scene 4. What does Mercutio think has been accomplished through his humor? He believes that he actually has cheered Romeo up. What is his opinion about people who brood over love? And then why does Mercutio feel this way? Well, he thinks that driveling love is ridiculous and irritating, and he feels this way because maybe he's never really experienced that emotion firsthand, so he just sees it as absolutely ridiculous. Okay, 27, scene 4, lines 89 through 108. How does this encounter with the nurse present a contrast to the threat hanging over Romeo's head? Why does Shakespeare structure his play in this way? Well, the nurse's mannerisms, as well as the character's baiting of her, are humorous. Shakespeare is showing the youthful liveliness of the characters and their capacity for joy in order to intensify the tragedy of what eventually occurs. So we have these like dramatic highs, and then we're going to have these really, really lows. 28, how do Mercutio and Benvolio treat the nurse, and what do their actions tell you about their characters? They're unkind. They ridicule the nurse for mispronouncing words. They also, the fan joke of like, the fan is fairer than her face. Mercutio and Benvolio's behavior show that they're playful. They're also class conscious. They ridicule the low standing of the nurse. They realize that she's not someone of high position. And so that's rude. 28, that was 28. Now 29, what do you know about the nurse's purpose that Benvolio and Mercutio are unaware of? Well, she's there on Juliet's behalf to see about the marriage arrangement, and Mercutio and Benvolio are still unaware of that. And then 30, how is the nurse's love for Juliet shown in her comments? And this is scene 4, lines 140 through 168. She refuses to divulge any information about Juliet until she ascertains whether Romeo's intentions are noble. Are they true? Is he's leading her into a fool's paradise, or does he genuinely feel this way about her? She warns him that if he's toying with Juliet's affections, he'll be guilty of a very gross kind of behavior. What does she say that she's going to tell Juliet, and why does Romeo question her? Well, she says she's going to tell Juliet that Romeo protests. Since that's meaningless, Romeo stops her to give the real message as far as the arrangement of their marriage. 31, scene 4, lines 140 through 168. Recall what the nurse said about Paris in Act 1, scene 3. Why does she agree to help Romeo in his plan to marry Juliet? She called him a man of wax, meaning that he was so handsome and a good husband for Juliet. But then why does she go to agree to help Romeo? She's easily influenced by the person who has her ear at the moment. She thinks it is romantic, and she wants Juliet to be happy. So she moves on very quickly. 32, scene 5, lines 1 through 17. What do Juliet's allusions to Venus and Cupid emphasize about her state of mind as she waits for the nurse's return? These allusions emphasize her focus on Romeo, her poetic, idealized view of love, and her nervousness as she's waiting for the nurse to return with news. How does her description of the nurse contrast with her characterization of love having wind-swift wings? Well, she calls the nurse like old folks, unwieldy, slow, heavy, pale as lead. So again, it's thus inferior to young people who are energized by love. 33, scene 5, lines 29 through 66. Why do the nurse's responses to Juliet's questions create humor? She digresses to such an extent that she fails to even answer Juliet's questions. She just keeps going on about her aching back, her aching head, oh, I, me. What's the effect of the nurse's responses on Juliet, and would the effect be the same for a different audience? Well, Juliet grows more and more impatient, and possibly worried. Like, why isn't she telling me right away? It has to be bad news. The audience knows what Romeo has said, and so we're not really kept in suspense. We just think it's funny. Audience members would derive humor from this scene. And 34, again, is asking about a photograph. Why might the director have chosen the actress who plays Juliet? She's young, she's beautiful, and there's like an air of innocence to her in that image. And then 35, scene 6, lines 3 through 8. Which words and phrases in Romeo's speech suggest a tragic future? Sorrow, one short minute, and love devouring death. Hint at a tragic turn of events. Love devouring death, yeah, it's maybe it's going to be death devouring love, perhaps. We do see a lot of those contradictions, so here we go. And then 36, scene 6, lines 9 through 15. Reread Friar Lawrence's caution to Romeo. Based on Romeo's past romantic history, what is Friar Lawrence fearful of here? He's worried that Romeo's love will burn out as quickly as it came, just like how it did with Rosaline. He fears that overly intense love cannot sustain itself. These violent delights have violent ends, and in their triumph die like fire and powder, which as they kiss consume. Just like honey is loathsome when you eat it in too much. And then the last one is 37, scene 6, lines 21 through 37. Contrast Romeo's speech with Juliet's. What does this difference reveal about their two characters? What is Friar Lawrence's tone? Okay, Romeo's speech is characteristically extravagant and hyperbolic. He is always hyperbolic. He attempts to express his great joy and his great love for Juliet. Juliet, on the other hand, says words that are inadequate to express what she feels. She shows herself in many ways to be the more sensible and down-to-earth out of the two of them. Friar Lawrence's tone, he's gently teasing, but also quite serious that he's going to safeguard their virtue until they're married. And so that is the end of Act 2. So when we get back from break, we will start in Act 3. I hope you guys have a wonderful Thanksgiving.